Hello everybody and welcome to One Autistic Person. This is the ninth video in a 50 video series that I am creating that goes through the questions from the Autism Quotient assessment, which is a pre-screening questionnaire that is used quite often as part of the diagnosis process for autism. Naturally, as part of the diagnosis process, the traits are quite often looked at as a deficit. And what I wanted to try and do with these videos is either look at them as a positive, try and pick where there are positives in these things and where they can be beneficial to us, or if there's any way of mitigating them or making adjustments for yourself to sort of make those traits easier when there isn't really a way of making a positive out of it. So this is question 9 of 50, and it's a statement rather than a question, but I am fascinated by dates, and for me that's a definitely agree. As I've said in a lot of my other videos, I could be sort of put quite snugly into the stereotypical boy autism profile of how people used to think about autism, that you're fascinated with dates, that you're fascinated with numbers, fascinated with sort of mechanical type things, just because we know the reason for that is because of the fact that it seemed to present more in boys in a way that was able to be diagnosed earlier and maybe didn't mask as much as children. There's various different reasons. I'm not going to get into that in this video. I'm sure I'll do one at some point around masking in general around that. So for me, this is very specialised to my special interests. So I can remember certain dates that are important to my special interests. So for me, one of the things on a date basis that I remember is I have a big, I have a strong feeling towards like social justice in general now, but throughout history. And I love history in general, but certainly social justice around how females were treated, and quite often how people, women who were in positions of power, quite often had that power taken away from them and were persecuted, vilified, and often executed for the fact that they had that power and other people didn't want them to have it. So it's a social justice thing for me. So I sort of remember like Anne Boleyn's execution date being the 19th of May, 1536. I know that she was meant to be executed the day before, but it was postponed. She was there's that date, and then sort of Catherine Howard. If you sort of go on the Tudor side of things, Catherine Howard and Lady Rochford. The interesting thing there is Lady Rochford was Anne Boleyn's sister-in-law and was intrinsic in her execution, and they were both executed on the 13th of February 1542. So like Marie Antoinette, 16th of October 1793. So I know that those dates stay in my head. When I was a kid, I could remember every monarch's accession to the throne, and coronation date and death date, right from 1066 all the way through to modern day. I've lost a lot of that information now. I do remember certain ones, like Henry VIII. His accession to the throne was the 22nd of April, 1509. He died on the 28th of January, 1547, I believe. And his coronation was the 24th of June, 1509. So there are those dates that stick in my head still, but the majority of that has gone actually over time. I don't know whether you quiz me, I probably would remember, but another thing so that's on the history side of things. So that's one special interest. Another special interest I have that I've mentioned before is theme parks and realistically roller coasters. So I remember the dates that pretty much every roller coaster, especially in the Merlin group, the Merlin Entertainments group, I remember pretty much when each one of those were originally opened. So, for instance, Nemesis was on the 19th of March, 1994. And interestingly, Nemesis Reborn was reopened on the 16th of March of this year, so 2024, almost 30 years later, and it really frustrates me that they didn't wait the extra 3 days and just open it exactly 30 years later. But I've kind of resolved that in my head. If you turn the 9 upside down, you've got a 6, so 16, 19, it's fine. And Oblivion probably was the first one where I remember it because of the fact. So Nemesis I went to way after it had opened. I think I didn't go to my first time to Alton Towers wasn't until 97 or something like that, so it had already been open 3 years, so I didn't know that I had a special interest in roller coasters until I rode Nemesis. Then suddenly it became that was a new thing for me. But Oblivion was on the 14th of March 1998, and I remember that because I begged my mum to go there. I think I did go on the opening date. I did go on the opening date for that one. And then, special interest there, so I can remember all of those. And Nemesis is because I researched back to see where it was, and then I've done a lot of research in other ones where I didn't necessarily know about them before, because it was a long time until I went to Thorpe Park, so I'd looked back at it. So researching them means that I then know what dates they were. So that's something that I know pretty much all of those. And they are sort of like really... I really want to know when. It is something that I crave to know. My brain craves to know when something was created, if it's something that was of interest to me. The one where I can remember probably all of them is The Sims. So I've been a fan of The Sims since day one. So The Sims came out the original one came out on the 4th of February 2000. Sims 2 was the 14th of September 2004. Sims 3, 2nd of June 2009, and Sims 4 was the 2nd of September 2014. So again, it feels like it's an important thing for me to know it. I mean, it's absolutely unnecessary, realistically, for me to know it, other than to know when there are going to be anniversaries, birthdays, because the whole Sims community want a birthday present from The Sims, and they often forget, which is hilarious. But for me, the positive with this, I think, is kind of an aid to memory to an extent, and I think it allows more in-depth knowledge for if you are fascinated by dates. I think it allows you to take in even more information. I think it helps with solidifying memory of things for you. One of the things that I used to do when I was younger is a date that I was if it was a date that I was interested in that was a long time ago, I would like to work out. I used to love working out how many days it had been from that time to that day to that from that date to the date that it was then. I mean, sometimes I'd really get obsessive and go into sort of like how many minutes it was and how many seconds it was. And obviously, you're going into hundreds of billions of seconds. But it fascinated me to do that because, again, my mind works with numbers. So that was, so I don't know where there was a link from with that or anything. But the good thing about it is if you're doing research for a project and you're going to do a presentation at work, or you're going to go to an interview, for instance, a job interview, I think if you're fascinated with dates, it really helps with things like interviews, because one of the questions that usually are asked is, can you tell us about the company that you're going to, that you're coming to the interview for? And I think a good thing there, if you're fascinated by dates, you are likely to be able to research that, because quite often what I find is before I go to an interview, that company will become my special interest. I want to know everything about it, which makes interviews really tiring, which is a video that I want to do, because especially if you're going through multiple different interviews, doing so much research and becoming so invested, and especially if you've got 2 or 3 interviews lined up at once, that can be a problem. Anyway, that complete tangent there, but my point is, on this, it could be really, really helpful in those scenarios. You're probably going to be able to remember what year they were established, any interesting fact about something that happened in a certain year and potentially on a specific date. If you are able to retain that information because of the fact that it's your special interest at that point, it's a mini special interest that you've got for that interview time, it's really going to impress somebody in an interview if you've remembered that, and it could make it so that actually, rather than autism fighting against you, which it quite often can do, interviews are quite a complex social situation. It could mean that they see, actually, this person could be of benefit to us because they are able to remember really important bits of information about our organisation, and they're taking this seriously. So I think it could help with making a difficult situation it could just give you a little bit of something during an interview. That's the only thing I could really think where it really would make a difference, is if that you could actually really focus and say, this is what you're able to focus on that, and then be able to give them something that then makes the interview maybe easier for you, and also probably more likely that you might get the job. So yeah, so that's, like I say, the 9th video of this 50 video series. I really would like it if eventually these could become, it's going to take some time, I know, to be people to talk, for people to talk about these questions and their responses to them in a kind of community way. So I really want to open up conversation wherever possible. So if you want to like, comment, subscribe, please do. Don't feel any pressure to do it, obviously, but all the talking we can do about this and making these things feel positive is going to make our lives easier. So thank you very much, and I hope to see you in the next one. Thanks.